Welcome back, Defenders. Jake here. It's October 1st. So the top story we have to talk about today is the averted US government shutdown. Why is this so important to Ukraine? And as you can see from this chart, countries committing the most aid to Ukraine. The European Union has been fantastic, but the overwhelming majority of their aid has been financial. Whereas with the United States, the majority of our aid has been military. Ukraine needs both guns and butter, and the United States has a lot of guns. Like, a lot of guns. So it's critical for Ukraine's war efforts that this flow of weapons not be interrupted. So what happened last night? Biden signs 45-day funding bill to keep the government open. So what a continuing resolution is whatever the funding levels for every department were last year, the last 12 months, we're just going to keep those levels, but just for the next 45 days. In effect, Congress bought themselves more time, and they're kicking the can down the road, and we're going to be in the exact same situation come November. Here's a statement put out by President Biden as he signed the continuing resolution. Tonight, bipartisan majorities in the House and Senate voted to keep the government open, preventing an unnecessary crisis that would have inflicted needless pain on millions of hardworking Americans. And in his statement at the bottom, he talks about Ukraine. While the Speaker and the overwhelming majority of Congress have been steadfast in their support for Ukraine, there is no new funding in this agreement to continue that support. We cannot, under any circumstances, allow American support for Ukraine to be interrupted. I fully expect the Speaker will keep his commitments to the people of Ukraine and secure passage of the support needed to help Ukraine at this critical moment. So how did this continuing resolution pass? And Speaker McCarthy had to go to the House Democrats in order to pass it. House Democrats bail out McCarthy in government shutdown battle with the GOP. So it was House Republicans fighting with House Republicans, unable to agree on the House version of all of these spending bills. So here's the vote. 45-day government funding, also some disaster relief, midnight deadline. 2/3 of the House had to pass this bill. So Speaker McCarthy and 126 House Republicans voted to keep the government open for another 45 days. And 90 House Republicans voted to shut it down. 90 House Republicans just wanted to close up shop and go home and not have a solution. So 209 House Democrats voted with Speaker McCarthy and the majority of House Republicans giving a final vote of 335 to 91. But this is interesting. Check out the one House Democrat who voted against the CR, and the lone Democrat to vote against the recently short-term spending bill was Representative Mike Quigley. He's the co-chair of the Congressional Ukraine Caucus. He opposed the resolution's lack of Ukraine aid. Quigley tweeted that the bill is a victory for Putin and his sympathizers. We now have 45 days to correct this mistake. So the leader of the Let Russia Win Caucus in Congress is Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene. She's been tweeting all kinds of nonsense to attack Ukraine and promote sympathy for Russia. She tweets right here, "We need peace in Ukraine, not war. Stop funding Ukraine. Just let Russia win." She's the America and Western democracy surrender first party and let the Soviet Union reconstitute itself. And she's promoting this clip from Florida Congressman Matt Gaetz. And if you don't know Matt Gaetz, let me just play this clip for you.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The reason we are here debating these issues is because my colleague from Georgia, Congresswoman Green, has found where there are distributions that could possibly use to go to Ukraine, and she is fighting admirably, often alone, and she is the reason that we are actually making some progress in this Congress to comport the will of this body to the will of the American people who think we have sent too much to Ukraine. Okay, $115 billion. It is inflationary, it is escalatory, and it could likely lead to an accident that could sleepwalk us into World War III. I'm in strong support of the Taylor Greene Amendment and all of her amendments to engage in this very noble effort to stop the United States from funding the war in Ukraine. I yield.
So that's Florida Congressman Matt Gaetz promoting Kremlin talking points and Russian disinformation, claiming that if the United States continues to support Ukraine, this will sleepwalk us into World War III. Matt Gaetz and Marjorie Taylor Greene are the Russia First Caucus. If Putin threatens to use nuclear weapons, then he wins. Any country in the world that Putin and the Russians want to invade next, as long as they threaten to use nuclear weapons, they get whatever they want. Make the Soviet Union great again. U.S. government shutdown would play right into Putin's hands. This is what the Kremlin wants. Chaos and disorder in Congress. And it doesn't take that many members of Congress to make the entire government shut down. So Russia's loving this. They're loving people like Matt Gaetz and Marjorie Taylor Greene stripping amendments and funding for Ukraine in all of these bills, promoting Kremlin talking points about this will trigger World War III if we continue to support and defend democracy around the world. People like Matt Gaetz want the United States to just roll over, show weakness, and abandon our allies around the world. So Speaker McCarthy, who I do believe supports Ukraine, is in a tough position because the Republicans only control the House by 5 seats. So if 6 members, 6 House Republicans, want to remove Speaker McCarthy, House Republicans are going to again have a crisis in leadership. Because between these 222 House Republicans, they'll never be able to agree on a new speaker. So if Speaker McCarthy falls, there will be chaos and confusion. There won't be a new Speaker of the House, and they'll go back to failed ballot after failed ballot, failing to elect a new Speaker. So I'm not a fan of Bill Kristol's previous work, but he is a strong supporter of Ukraine. Here's Bill Kristol's advice. The Biden administration signaled it could work around no Ukraine funds for 45 days. There's stuff in the pipeline. Europe can help, etc. But the whole world is watching. Biden has to say now, and unequivocally, this is a mere hiccup, and there will be funding for Ukraine. Even better, obviously, would be to get ample and longer-term funding for Ukraine passed ASAP. Even this week. Why not? Big majorities in both houses for it. So Speaker McCarthy can end all of this pain and anguish, all of this debate, by just having a standalone funding bill for Ukraine and schedule a vote. There's a supermajority in the Senate, there's a supermajority in the House that would vote in favor of it. Then 44 days from now, we can debate and talk about all the other aspects of funding the government without having $300 million for Ukraine here and $3 billion for Ukraine there. Just make it simple. Just schedule a vote and we can end all of this chaos and disorder in the House of Representatives. So here's the statement the White House put out. We expect Speaker McCarthy, who has indicated his support for funding to support Ukraine in its fight against Russia's illegal and unjustified war of aggression, to bring a separate bill to the floor. He doesn't even have to vote for it. All he has to do is schedule a vote. 210 House Democrats and 130 House Republicans will vote for it. It'll probably get 80 votes in the Senate. And then we don't have to think or debate this for another 12 months. Here's a statement put out by the House Democratic leadership. When the House returns, we expect Speaker McCarthy to advance a bill to the House floor for an up or down vote that supports Ukraine, consistent with his commitment to making sure that Putin, Russia, and authoritarianism are defeated. So it gets interesting because Matt Gaetz tweeted this. Wow. Speaker McCarthy made a side Ukraine deal with Democrats and didn't tell House Republicans until after his continuing resolution passed. More deceit. So Matt Gaetz is saying he plans to call for a vote of no confidence and oust Speaker McCarthy. Putin and the Russians would love this. If a vote of no confidence removed Speaker McCarthy, and then the House just didn't have a speaker, didn't have any governing authority, or didn't pass any bills or vote on anything. So Matt Gaetz is doing everything he can to help Russia, and we'll see what happens this week. I think in my update video coming in 2 days, we're going to know more. But the Department of Defense is still doing their best. Here's a letter from the Undersecretary of Defense, this is the Pentagon Comptroller, pleading with House leadership. They write this. I write to express the Department of Defense's deep concern with the absence of security assistance funding for Ukraine in the continuing resolution. The Department of Defense is anxious to avoid a lapse in appropriations, but it is important that a CR protect our security interests and uphold our commitments and our values. Today, the DoD has exhausted nearly all available security assistance funding for Ukraine. We are already out of funding for the Ukraine Security Assistance Initiative, one of the 2 security assistance tools we have. So everything that's been funded and allocated is still being delivered. GLSDB is still on the way. Training for Ukrainian pilots, logistics, maintenance, everything that's already been approved and allocated is still continuing like normal. There just won't be any new security assistance packages announced the next 45 days. Pentagon exempts Ukraine operations from potential government shutdown, so anybody involved in the United States military as far as logistics, training, intelligence, if the government shuts down in 45 days in November, they're all considered essential services. They will continue doing their jobs. They just won't get their paychecks until Congress passes a real budget. Let me share with you the reaction of former Congressperson Liz Cheney, members of the House and Senate who are voting to deny Ukraine assistance on the 85th anniversary of Neville Chamberlain's 1938 Peace in Our Time speech, should read some history. Appeasement didn't work then, and it won't work now. You know, for Neville Chamberlain, he thought he could cut a deal with Hitler. He thought if we just gave Hitler some land, this will prevent future wars. Peace in our time. For representatives like Matt Gaetz claiming just let Russia win, have Ukraine give up territory, it's history repeating itself. Putin's never going to stop. The Russians are never going to stop. Ukraine must win today in order to prevent future wars. Here's the reaction from Timothy Schneider. Cutting off Ukraine aid makes America unreliable, weakens the cause of democracy, threatens the international legal order, and encourages tyrants around the world and hastens Chinese aggression. China's watching. China's on the warpath. China would love to invade and attack their smaller neighbors, and if America abandons its commitments to democratic allies around the world, the lesson to be learned is you can't rely on the United States. If you can just drag a war out a year and a half, members of Congress will get bored and then start advocating that the tyrant should win, the bully should win, and we need to prevent World War III. Here's the truth, though. This is not a blank check for Ukraine. All money is accounted for. There's plenty of oversight. Ukraine is not a distraction from China. For some reason, Kremlin disinformation includes, "Don't worry about Russia, China is the real threat," when in reality, China and Russia have been conducting joint military exercises for 20 years. Also, Europe doesn't do enough. That's also false. Here's the truth. America cutting aid to Ukraine is not conservative. Ukraine aid is 3.5% of America's defense budget. Ukraine aid is 0.3% of America's total budget. Ukraine aid would finance U.S. government expenditures for 27 minutes when you factor in Social Security and Medicare. Ukraine aid to date has already destroyed 50% of the Russian military, making the world a much safer place now that all these old Soviet stockpiles of weapons and armor are being annihilated on the battlefield. Stunningly ignorant, Elon Musk blasted for latest Ukraine tweets. Elon continues to do everything he can to undermine support for Ukraine and promotes Russian propaganda on Twitter. He's constantly retweeting, liking, commenting, and promoting members of Congress who don't support Ukraine, such as Senator Rand Paul, who bragged about the continuing resolution not having any Ukraine aid in it. Elon responds, "Bravo." So here's the new Russian disinformation talking points being promoted by people like Elon Musk. Why do so many American politicians from both parties care 100 times more about the Ukraine border than the US border? I'm just going to say two things. The first is the United States is strong enough to both support Ukraine and secure our southern border. But the reason why the United States has not secured its southern border for my entire lifetime, 40 years, is because America is addicted to cheap migrant labor. I could solve illegal immigration overnight. Make me king of America, and I could easily fix illegal immigration. The solution is to make it a felony offense to hire any undocumented worker. So any American farmer who hires an illegal immigrant, mandatory minimum sentences, 6 months in federal prison. Any construction or small business owner who hires an illegal alien, mandatory minimum, 6 months in federal prison. Any wealthy suburban housewife who hires a nanny that is an undocumented worker, send her to federal prison for 6 months, and we would solve the illegal immigration problem. But the truth is, America is addicted to cheap labor. Wealthy people, small businesses, and American farmers love hiring illegal workers and paying them less than they would have to pay an American to do the same job. Elon Musk, being the wealthiest man in the world, he knows this, but he's happy to promote this narrative to incite outrage in the United States in order to protect Russia, in order to offer political cover for people who support Russia in Congress. And this is what people like Gates, Green, and Musk are defending. This man is not a prisoner of a Nazi concentration camp. He's a Ukrainian soldier who's been held in a Russian POW camp for almost a year. Almost all Ukrainian men held in Russian POW camps are beaten and tortured. They're all starved. For contrast, this is what a Russian soldier looks like in a Ukrainian POW camp, and this is what a Ukrainian man looks like. This is not a cherry-picked photo. This is not an isolated incident. The pictures and videos showing Ukrainian POWs being returned are everywhere, and it's the exact same story. So when Ukrainian POWs are exchanged for Russian POWs, they state that they're only fed once a day, and it's usually a bowl of cabbage soup. They're getting maybe 300, 400 calories a day as their body completely wastes away. Russia hosts the Taliban in the Kremlin. So Russia is looking for allies around the world. They've got North Korea, they've got Iran. Sure, why not? The Taliban. Here's the Kremlin rolling out the red carpets for the worst people in the world. So why is the Kremlin offering VIP treatment to the Taliban? Afghanistan is not really known for its industrial capacity to produce weapons and export them. And it comes down to geography. When you think about the Central Asian republics, they have China to the east, Iran to the south, Russia covers the north. So the only remaining border for the Central Asian republics is Afghanistan. If Russia can pay off and cozy up to the Taliban, perhaps they can open some military bases on the borders of these Central Asian republics. The goal of Russia is to continue these wars until they've reconstituted their empire. Putin wants the wealth and resources of Central Asia back for his own power and influence. So yeah, partnering with the Taliban is something 100% that the Kremlin is looking to do. But kudos to Kazakhstan. Kazakhstan stated that they won't help Russia to bust sanctions. Kazakhstan technically is in the same economic alliance and military alliance as Russia, but they know what the Russians are going to do next after the war in Ukraine. So Kazakhstan is not helping the Russians evade sanctions, in effect, participating in sanctions. Russia says no plans for new mobilization. It's October 1st, and we haven't seen this spectacular event of 40 and 50 and 60-year-old Russian men being rounded up. But the truth is, mobilization never ended. Russia just does a small amount every single day. So Russian men who maybe served in the military 20 or 30 years ago, they get called up all the time. And Russia likes to pretend that they're not doing mobilizations. But they're still conscripting. Russia to draft 130,000 young men in fall military call-up. So combined with the 147,000 men drafted in the springtime, Russia's defense ministry will field 277,000 new conscripts for 2023. And remember, nobody's getting out. Anybody who's been conscripted or mobilized up to this point, unless they lose a leg, even if they lose a leg, they've still got to stay in the Russian military and fight in Ukraine until this war is over. And Russia is saying that the next round of conscription will include the occupied territories. So any Ukrainian men between the ages of 18 and 30 in Kherson, Zaporizhia, Donetsk, and Luhansk, they're definitely going to be conscripted into the Russian military, sent to the front lines, and used as cannon fodder. Russia views this as a win-win if they can start getting Ukrainian men to fight Ukrainian men in the trenches on the front lines. So let's check in with the average Russian soldier. We've got another video from Dmitry at War Translated showing service members who pre-recorded a video prior to being sent into a meat assault near Klishivka. So these men wanted to film this video in the event they died, and the video was released, so we know what happened to them. This is what they say. Here in Klishivka, we lost around 1,000 people, perhaps even more, 1,200. There's nothing to do there. This may be the last time you see the lads. Today is September 19th when we arrived to the zero line. We were at first given the task of recon by fire, then to take a tree line and occupy the residential area in Klishivka. For your understanding, in Klishivka, from the lakeside, 2 Leopards are operating. The zone is fully fired through and shells with clusters. Moving out are 10 of us, and 5 are covering. Only because we didn't take them, so we'd have a chance to come out. Enemy manpower superiority is reportedly 10-fold. They're better armed. We have no magazine, nothing. Machine guns are rotten. We use whatever there is. What regiment is this? The 1307, Unit 78567. No one is hiding their faces. If anything happens to us, we want to tell our relatives that we stood till the end for Russia and for your good. We have no cowards. We will do our own thing anyway. No one will be scared. No one will run away. We were promised artillery support and evacuation. But if our team does not return, if something bad is going to happen, this video will immediately go out on the internet. On behalf of our group of 10 plus 5, we want the society to raise the question of the training of the mobilized and the contractors. Guys here are already on their second contracts. We have Akhmets, we have Spetsnaz, we have Wagnerites. They will do their job and complete their task. But we feel sorry for the mobilized soldiers. So mobilized men with no combat training whatsoever are sent to the front lines. Conscripts are sent to the front lines. It's just a slaughter. Claims swirl around possible friendly fire shoot-down of Russian Su-35 near Tokmak. There are indications that the Su-35 was downed by friendly Russian air defenses near a contested area of Ukraine. Yep, Russia, with an S-300 missile, shot down one of their own planes and killed the pilots. One less Russian warplane to commit war crimes. Final couple feel-good clips. The first one is from Maria Avdiva in Kharkiv, and she wants to highlight the contributions of this Ukrainian street artist.
I'm here today with Hamlet, the most famous Kharkiv street artist, and he has just finished his famous and very beautiful artwork, and it says, I see everything. And the message we here in Kharkiv have for the world is that Ukrainian soldiers and everyone here is fighting for all of you, so that the war will be here in Ukraine and not in other countries. And this is why Ukraine needs your support, and this is why we all have to stop Putin and his war and Russia here, unless they go further and they go to your countries. Slava Ukraini!
Looks good. Final clip I have for you is Laura, the Ukrainian dog. And Laura likes to sing the Ukrainian anthem her own way.
Зараз названі собака співає на гімн України, да? Раз. Як його там звати? Дора. Так.
Too cute. That's all for this update video. Glory to Ukraine, glory to the heroes. If you found this video informative, give me a thumbs up. Best way to support the channel. Comments and questions, let me know down below. I love hearing from you guys. Till the next video, keep defending the truth, keep defending democracy.